The evening sun cast a golden hue over Maplewood, transforming my father's sprawling estate into a breathtaking portrait of wealth and power. Despite its beauty, I found little comfort in those walls, where secrets festered beneath the polished surfaces. As the familiar scent of polished wood and leather wafted through the air, I felt a tightening in my chest, a familiar feeling that had accompanied me for years. Today was tough, yet another moment where I had to wear the mask of the dutiful daughter and pretend that everything was perfect. I stood in the large dining room, a place often filled with laughter and cheer, but now more akin to a stage where we all played our parts. My father's booming voice echoed as he animatedly recounted tales of his latest business ventures to my mother and younger brother. It's going to be unlike anything this town has seen. The profits will be astronomical, he said, gesturing grandly with his hands, hands that had built everything we had, yet had crushed so many dreams along the way. I forced a smile, my heart heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. That right, Amelia? My father's gaze landed on me, piercing and expectant. You should be excited about this partnership. It's good for the family. Of course, Dad, I replied, the words tasting bitter as they left my lips. Excited. I knew better than to voice my true feelings. Being scrutinized under my father's gaze was like being trapped within a web of expectations. See, your sister is excited, my father said, a glittering satisfaction in his voice that sent shivers down my spine. She just needs to believe in herself more. Don't you, Amelia? Sure, I mumbled, glancing away to avoid his sharp stare. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, but I quickly bit my lip, not wanting to expose my vulnerability. Deep inside, frustration bubbled, igniting a slow burn that was becoming increasingly difficult to suppress. Meanwhile, my brother leaned back, basking in the glory of our father's attention like a cat in a sunbeam. Dad, you really think this new partnership will bring in that much income? Sounds almost too good to be true, he said, a devilish grin on his face. He loved these moments, the two of them against me while I curbed my ambitious dreams for the sake of conformity and familial harmony. Reality is what we make it, son. If you think big, you can achieve big, my father replied, unlike some who just waste their potential. I felt his words stab into me like ice picks. You should take a page from your brother's book, Amelia. I hated how easily that barb found its mark. My heart raced and my stomach turned. It was as if I were always caged in his judgments, thinking less of what I could achieve. I am working on my own projects, Dad, I said quietly, my voice brimming with a mix of hope and defensiveness. I have my own dreams. Dreams, he scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. You know I just want what's best for you, but you have to be realistic. He turned back to my brother, the warm light of admiration returning to his eyes. You have the potential to further this family's legacy. Thanks, Dad, my brother exclaimed, his voice dripping with enthusiasm as he flashed a cocky grin. I know I just need to keep hustling. One day I will take over your company, just like you always said. My heart sank deeper into my chest as I felt the gap between us widen even further. My brother's ambition was met with affection, while mine was cast aside as trivial. You think your sister will join you in taking the company forward? I doubt she'll even match your resolve. My father's words hung in the air like a mist, suffocating any remnants of my aspirations. I could almost hear the laughter echoing in my ears. My dreams were nothing more than whimsical flights of fancy in their eyes. I retreated to the kitchen, needing a moment to breathe and embrace the coolness of the tile against my bare feet. As I poured myself a glass of water, I looked out onto the sprawling estate, a reminder of everything I had clung to. Growing up, I had believed we were in a castle filled with love and safety, but now I could see that the gilded boundaries of our lives were closing in fast. My mother walked into the kitchen, her expression softening when she saw me. Hey, sweetie, everything all right? She asked gently, her eyes searching mine for a glimpse of truth. I'm fine, just tired, I replied, not wanting to dive into the complexities of my feelings. It felt easier to swallow the disappointment, bitter as it was. You know how your father gets, always dreaming big. We need to support him. She gave a reassuring nod, but I could tell there was a part of her that joined me in feeling the suffocation of his ambition. I just wish he could see my dreams too, I mumbled, half-heartedly hoping she might understand the frustration I felt. It's always about money and success for him. He never takes me seriously. Oh, Amelia. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, her fingers warm and comforting. You have to be patient. It's hard for him to see things from your perspective. Just try to be supportive, all right? Supportive? I've supported him my whole life, I replied, feeling fire flare within me as I realized how painfully redundant that sounded. And for what? To watch my dreams crumble? I do everything I can, but it feels like a losing battle every single time. She sighed and looked out the window, her voice calming. I know, but you can't give up. There are so many paths ahead for you. You can achieve greatness in your own way. As much as I wanted to believe her, a part of me felt the weight of our family's expectations thundering around us like an endless storm. What if I don't want his path? What if I don't like what he is building? I felt the frustration swell like a tidal wave inside me, threatening to crash. The truth is, she said quietly, we often don't realize the price of success until we already pay it. Just tread carefully. I closed my eyes, silently fuming. Treading carefully was not how I wanted to navigate my life. I wanted to dive headfirst into my dreams, not tread cautiously. Maybe I will find a way. My words felt defiant, almost rebellious, as the thought of devising a plan began to drown my gloom in a sea of possibility. I know you will, she replied, but there was a shadow of doubt beneath her assurance. I could sense she wished she could protect me even more, yet she was bound by the complexities of our family. As the evening wore on, the air shifted like thick molasses, but the laughter from the dining room drew me back to reality. I stepped into the warmth of the room once again, a facade of confidence plastered across my face. I wanted to shake off the heaviness of my emotions and mask it with just a little charm. Who wants dessert? I announced brightly, threading my way through the table, not caring that my heart still raced from the tension. I faked a smile and everyone turned towards me, and for an instant I caught a flicker of recognition in my father's eyes that made my heart race. Maybe I could seize this moment, harness it, and turn it into something worthwhile. Great idea, I think there's pie, my brother said, his voice ringing with eagerness. He turned on his chair, mischievous glinting in his eyes. Just make sure there's enough left for me, or I may need to have a word with you, sis. I rolled my eyes, managing a laugh to ease my racing heart. I will wear my boxing gloves if necessary. But beneath the humor lay a tumultuous sea of anguish and ambition. I wanted to change everything. Perhaps this partnership, this new venture, was the very opportunity I needed to redefine my role in this family, to rewrite the narratives that had been scribbled across our history, always taunting me from the shadows. After setting the dessert down, I stepped back to take a breath and glanced around the room, the clattering of utensils and buzzing chatter filling the air, masking the heartbreak and ambition swirling in my mind. I would make a plan. I would find a way to prove myself, not through the path my father laid, but through my own relentless spirit. As the hours slipped away, I returned to my room, my sanctuary filled with my own dreams and aspirations. I stood before the mirror and gazed at the reflection looking back at me. I was more than just a daughter. I was a force waiting to be unleashed. The storm brewing inside me would not be extinguished but would rage on, reshaping itself into an unyielding determination that would force my family to finally see me for who I truly was, days blended into weeks. I had hoped that things might change, that my father would realize the mess he was creating. Every passing day felt heavier than the last, pulling me further into despair. I stayed trapped within the walls of our once thriving home, which now echoed with the nagging discontent of unpaid bills and the stale scent of uneaten takeout. My heart felt like it was strangled by a vine of confusion and bitterness. I would sit at the worn dining room table, the lamplight flickering shakily above my head, its glow barely pushing aside the shadows that cloaked our lives. The chair creaked beneath me as I picked at another meal of leftovers. There had to be something out there that could save us, or at least save me from the suffocating weight of grief that clung to my skin. But I could do nothing as I listened to the ringing laughter of my brother from the other room, giddy with the latest gadget my father had splurged on without a second thought. I got the new gaming console. Can you believe Dad got it for me? My brother sounded so full of joy, a joy I felt like I could never touch myself. I gritted my teeth, trying to ignore the way my heart ached. The console cost as much as my school tuition had, an expense that left me with gut-wrenching jealousy, fighting each moment to keep tears at bay. Fantastic, I managed to reply, my voice barely above a whisper as I sneaked a glance at my father, who was perched on the edge of the couch, glowing with pride. He was so consumed by the sight of my brother's delight that he didn't even look my way. We should all try it out, my brother suggested, his enthusiasm spilling over. Come on, Amelia, it'll be fun. He glanced at our father, who nodded, eager to relish in the moment. It didn't matter that my heart felt like shattered glass. Not tonight, I'm just not in the mood, I said through gritted teeth. I didn't want to be like this, snappy and bitter, but every day felt like another wound that opened in the fabric of my family life. My father threw his head back, laughter echoing in his throat like thunder rolling through a storm. Always so serious. Come on, lighten up. This is supposed to be a happy time, he said, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. Happy? I wanted to scream. How could he think any of this was happy? I glanced at the bills scattered on the counter like small, terrifying reminders that we were losing everything. I felt trapped in a nightmare I could not escape from. Weeks went by, and the dim light of that hope flickered and faded. Then came the day none of us could prepare for, the day the hammer fell. I was in my room when I heard the sound of a crushing thud beneath the weight of my father's heavy footsteps. My heart raced as I approached the door, ears straining to hear what was happening downstairs. My brother's laughter had been replaced with the low hum of a conversation punctuated by the occasional gasp. Why? Why did this have to happen? I whispered to myself, feeling the imbalance of my emotions clawing at me. As I opened the door, I caught sight of my father's face, pale and tense, his brow drawn tight in fear. I stood frozen by the top of the stairs, watching him sway like a tree caught in a storm. It's over, Greg. The business is done for. They are foreclosing on us. My mother's voice trembled with despair. It sliced into me like a dagger, and I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the jagged pieces of my heart. I gripped the handrail of the staircase tightly, sweat beading at my temples. No. I breathed, horrified. Surely this couldn't be real. The life we had, the vacations, my father's laughter, it all felt like a cruel joke. But as I caught my father's empty gaze, the truth settled over me like heavy fog. $50,000 gone in an instant, my mother continued, her voice cracking like ice. Do you even realize what that could have meant for us, for you, for your sister? I did everything I could, my father shouted suddenly, the rage in his voice echoing up to me. Something dark shifted in the air. It was a risk worth taking, you just don't understand. I journeyed downstairs just as my mother's tears flowed free. She looked like a ghost, haunting the remains of a life that once felt whole. I hated seeing her like this, but more than that, I was devastated, knowing that what she felt mirrored how I felt. The pain, the helplessness, but there was something different prickling beneath the surface of my pain, something dark and tangled. You don't realize, my father spat, the bitterness curling around his words. You never realize when you preach so much. He was directing this at my mother, but it landed on me too. I could feel the air between us thicken. I was doing this for us. I thought I could make things better. What good is better if we don't have a home to live in? My mother interjected, anger bleeding into her anguish. I wanted a family I could count on, not one that crumbled at the first sign of hardship. You put us at risk? I barely registered what happened next as my father waved her off, the gesture dismissive and rage-filled. This is all your fault. You never supported me, never believed in me. You've always been mad, that's why I had to do it. The words I had been holding back finally escaped my lips. You think I was never good enough. You think this is my fault? The words landed heavily in the room, met with disbelief and simmering anger. Those are not the words to fling around, Amelia, my father growled, his face twisting into something ugly, the tension clenching his jaw. You were never good enough, you brought this upon us. His words cut like a frigid wind sweeping through in winter, sharp and biting, freezing me to the spot. The mere mention of my inadequacies felt like a blade digging deep into my chest, a deep breath stolen from my lungs, and tears pooled in the corners of my eyes, stinging like hot coals. Suddenly, everything felt surreal. I glanced at the peeling wallpaper, the faded light fixtures, the pictures that once held our smiles but felt like portraits of a lost dream now. I felt as if I were standing on the brink of a cliff, peering into an abyss of nothingness, my foundation crumbling beneath my feet. All I had ever wanted was to be his daughter, the one who made him proud, the one he loved and acknowledged. But instead, I felt like a fallen leaf being trampled underfoot. I craved validation, warmth, a sense of belonging where all I received was contempt masked in a facade of indifference. I had to try, I had to believe in something, I shouted, my voice rising, morphing from a whimper to a snarl. But you were too busy deciding which child deserved your love. My father's expression flipped, rage boiling beneath the surface, as if he had all this energy pent up, simmering and just waiting to explode. I stood frozen, fear crawling up my spine, barely believing the words I hurled at him. You want to blame someone, Dad? Try blaming yourself. You ruined us, not me. Just then, my mother put a hand on my shoulder, pulling me aside. You need to stop, she murmured, her voice trembling. This is not the time. We need a plan. We need to figure this out. But I could hardly hear her. My father's fury simmered too close, his rage radiating like heat from a furnace, and all I could do was hold on to the last strands of myself. I had been waiting too long for this moment, scrapped beneath his careless decisions, left to rot without heat or light. Always the martyr, my father seethed, each word dripping with venom. You think you can just blame me? You're just like the rest of them, falling short every time. I flinched at his words, my body trembling, and like a match struck against a dry surface, the fire ignited in my chest. You don't get to tell me who I am? You've made all these choices. None of this was ever about me. He's right, my mother whispered, but it fell on deaf ears as I stared into the mirrored reflection of my father's hardened face. All the darkness I felt was swirling inside me, gaining momentum, and for the first time, I felt the tide beginning to shift. With one last look, I turned and walked away. I could hear the remnants of the storm behind me, but a new determination fueled my steps, affirming that I would change this tide. I would make sure he understood the pain he had caused, the irreparable damage he had instilled. As I stormed off toward my room, an unexpected fire raged within me, not just against him, but toward the world that had molded me, forcing me to fit inside the box of his failures. I was tired, tired of feeling weak, tired of fear, tired of feeling that I was never enough. My father had unleashed something irrevocable that day. The flames of vengeance were beginning to stoke the edges of my mind, a whispered promise swelling within me. He would discover the true meaning of standing on the edge of destruction, and I would guide him there myself in the wake of the disaster. My world had changed in an instant. The chaos that had torn through our lives left behind a fog of unresolved questions and a deeper chasm of betrayal. What had once been a family grounded in trust now felt like a house constructed of cards teetering on the edge of collapse. The initial sorrow morphed into a cold, fierce resolve, igniting a fire deep within me. Each night, the walls of my small bedroom echoed with the sounds of my futile attempts to sleep. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, the shadows dancing ominously in the dim light as I tried to piece together the financial nightmare my father had orchestrated. The smell of stale coffee filled the air as I sat hunched over my cluttered desk, littered with paper stacks and empty cups, my eyes growing more tired with each passing hour. Why, Dad, why? I whispered into the void, my heart heavy with unanswered questions. As if hearing my plea, an uneasy, insistent yearning to unearth the truth overtook me. Late into the night, my computer screen illuminated my face in a ghostly glow, showing the reflection of desperation etched in my features. Each keystroke felt like a pulse of my determination. I dug deep, relentless in my investigation. I quickly became entranced by the labyrinth of numbers displayed on the digital sheets before me. Contracts, emails, financial statements. The truth began to unfurl like a dark flag in the wind. I discovered that my father had lied, and it pierced me deeper than any physical blow. While we had once sat around the dinner table, sharing laughter and dreams, he had concealed losses from us, the family he had sworn to protect. The betrayal felt like shards of glass embedded in my heart. My fingers trembled as I clicked through document after document, piecing together an intricate web of lies he had spun. I could hear him in my mind, his confidence echoing in my ears. Trust me, Amelia, it's all going to work out. The remnants of my childhood self faded, replaced by a fierce warrior willing to fight not just for the truth, but for justice against the man who should have been my greatest protector. Look at this, I muttered softly, scrolling through one email that outlined potential losses projected to last year's, masked under the guise of growth and innovation. This is insane. My sweat dampened palms slickened against the cool metal of my laptop as I copied each damning piece of evidence with meticulous care. I could hardly catch my breath. My pulse quickened with every damning word, guiding me towards the inevitable conclusion. He was guilty. No one could escape the weight of these revelations. I was resolute. My small apartment, once a haven of comfort, now felt like a prison, holding my fury and sorrow within its concrete walls. The distant sounds of traffic outside echoed like an unyielding reminder that life marched on, oblivious to my turmoil. With renewed determination, I told myself, "This is your moment, Amelia. It's time to do what has to be done." I envisioned the faces of my family, the disbelief and betrayal reflecting back at me, and that image fueled my drive further. Summoning all the energy I could muster, I began drafting the anonymous letter that would serve as my calling card, the weapon against the man who had wronged us all. Dear editor, I typed, my fingers flying over the keys, I am compelled to draw your attention to a significant breach of trust within a local business. My heart raced as each word materialized, evidence that would eventually shatter the illusion he had built so carefully. I have uncovered a series of deceptive practices employed by the owner, which has not only put his family's assets at risk, but also endangered the livelihoods of his employees. Writing those words felt like breathing new life into the shame I had carried. Attached are documents outlining these discrepancies, along with emails and statements directly related to these matters. The finality of my statement settled over me like a warm blanket, engulfing me in a sense of chaotic comfort. As I neared the end of the letter, I felt a giddy mix of anxiety and thrill coursing through my veins. The weight of the moment coiled tight in my chest as I reviewed the image I had painted in those paragraphs. I could picture the headlines it would generate: local businessman's empire built on lies, family left in ruins. The thought of that made me smile. I knew that on the other side of that click, my father's world would begin to unravel, and a part of me felt a twisted sense of victory. This is for Mom, this is for all of us, I chanted in my mind, trying to ward off any hesitations. With a shattering finality, I sat back for a moment, absorbing the enormity of what I was about to do. The air in the room shifted, charged with tension as if the universe itself held its breath. One click and everything changes, I whispered to myself, my fingers hovering over the trackpad. I pulled in a deep breath, one that seemed to ignite a spark in the depths of my soul. It was a moment of reckoning, and I steadied myself. For the truth, I murmured fiercely, reclaiming the power that had been stripped away from me by lies. My resolve solidified, and with one swift motion, I hit send. The sound of the email whooshing away filled the room, and in an instant, a rush of exhilaration and fear cascaded over me like a cold wave. I let out shaky breath, the thrill of scandal swirling in my mind like a whirlwind. What have I done? I asked myself as if the gravity of my choice was just settling in. But deep down, I knew I had done what was necessary. The intoxicating thought of the chaos to come sent a rosy thrill through my veins, and I couldn't help but smile, fully aware of the weight of what would happen next. The morning light floods my apartment, spilling warmth across my rundown furniture when I wake the next day. But the warmth does not reach my heart. Instead, a chill settles in my bones. I glance at the clock. It is too early to feel the weight I now carry, but here it is, heavy and impossibly real. The first light of dawn sneaks through the window, landing on the chaos I had left behind the night before. Paper scattered everywhere, remnants of my frenzied pursuit of the hidden truths. As I sip my coffee, the bitter taste no longer warms me. It serves only as a reminder of the bitter path I have chosen. The scent of hope wafts in and out alongside the fear curling in my stomach. What if they don't take it seriously? I think, chewing nervously on my thumbnail. I imagine the news teams laughing the whole thing off, my father's charm wrapping around him like armor. Just then, the phone vibrates violently on my desk, snapping me out of my thoughts. Hello? I answer, my voice unsteady as I try to cloak my anxiety. Amelia? It's a voice I recognize, strong and confident. It's Sam from the Maplewood Chronicle. We received your letter. Are you available for an interview? My heart leaps, an unexpected wave of emotion almost toppling my careful composure. Yes, of course. When? We'd like to get your story right away, if possible. Sure, I can meet you today, I stutter, my fingers nervously brushing against my hair. Perfect, I'll come by your place around noon. We want to hear everything you've uncovered. This could be big. His enthusiasm sent a tremor of exhilaration through me, while also igniting a fresh wave of fear. Once we hang up, 1,000 thoughts race through my mind. This is it, I mumble to myself. Somehow it feels too surreal. The urge to go through my findings once more swells within me, the determined need to double-check my work clawing at my already frayed nerves. I flip open the folder holding my evidence, scrutinizing each document as though it could betray me at any moment. This is for truth, I reassured myself, before finding solace in the notes I had outlined for the meeting. Hours feel marathon long as I wait for Sam. Every tick of the clock draws out my anxiety until the wall feels like it is closing in on me. I hear his knock at the door and it sounds like a gunshot, reverberating in my chest. Okay, play it cool, I whisper, smoothing my shirt in a feeble attempt to give myself confidence. When I swing the door open, Sam's face beams with genuine curiosity. Hey, Amelia, thanks for agreeing to meet with us. Thanks for being interested, I reply, gesturing for him to enter. I hope I can offer you something worthwhile. The moment he sits across from me, I am instantly on the defensive, every instinct alive and hyperaware of his presence. Just tell me everything, he urges gently, leaning in as I start unraveling the truth I had worked so hard to expose. Begin wherever you feel comfortable. As I dive into the facts, recounting every detail and showing him the supporting evidence, I can see the intrigue growing in his eyes. This is way more than I expected. You've really done your homework, he says, his voice filled with admiration. Suddenly, the reality of what I've set in motion looms larger than I imagined. The scandal is no longer just ink on paper. It has become real, a force that will unleash wounds I could never have anticipated. At that moment, emotions twist within me, a complex melange of fear, determination, and a lingering tinge of guilt. As our conversation unfolds, I can feel the weight of my father's deceptions thrumming in the silence of the room. How do you plan to share this with the public? I ask, trying to sound nonchalant, but I know my heart is racing. Well, with the evidence you provided, we can prepare a piece for tomorrow's publication. A follow-up investigation might be in order depending on how your father reacts. I nod, swallowing hard. Is there going to be backlash? He has a lot of power in town. Perhaps, but truth always has a way of surfacing. No one can escape once the tide turns, Sam says, his gaze meeting mine firmly. A shiver of anticipation, excitement, and fear coiled in my gut at the thought of the storm ahead. After the interview, I walk Sam down the stairs, and as I see him out, I take a deep breath. There is a hint of something unsettling yet liberating about what I have set into motion. The battle lines have been drawn, and every confrontation to come is a reflection of my resolve to reclaim not just my life, but my family's dignity. The door clicks shut behind him, sealing away the last vestiges of my old life. I stand there, alone in the smallness of my apartment, and allow myself a moment for that smile to grace my lips again. The thrill, the anticipation of what this would all do to my father suddenly turns into tangible hope. I walk over to the window and gaze outside, imagining the impending chaos that will soon unfold. For the first time in ages, my heart thumps not with sorrow, but with a fierce sense of empowerment. This is just the beginning, I whisper into the quiet room, letting the weight of my actions hang in the air around me. I feel alive, invigorated, and ready for the storm that is coming. I remember that day vividly, as the sun rose behind a dense bank of clouds, casting an oppressive grayness over everything. The atmosphere around our home felt stifling, almost suffocating, as if the world was bracing itself for an explosion. News had broken just days prior about my father's catastrophic business failure, and the rush of media scrutiny was relentless. I sitting in our grand, meticulously decorated living room, decorated with opulent furniture and sparkling chandeliers that once symbolized our family's elevated status. Now, however, it felt like an eerie mausoleum, cloaked in silence, save for the incessant clicking of cameras and the murmuring of reporters lurking just beyond our iron gates, like vultures waiting to swoop in for a carcass. The questions they asked were clinical and impersonal, their tones brimming with the kind of morbid curiosity that feeds on scandal. "How does it feel to lose everything, Mr. Bennett?" one persistent journalist had shouted. I could almost hear the glee in their voices, a twisted delight in my father's downfall. My heart raced, a conflicting blend of intrigue and satisfaction bubbling within me as I took a seat by the window, hidden just enough that they could not see me, but I could see them clearly. Their faces were alive with anticipation, eager to catch a glimpse of the man who used to be seen as a titan in business, now reduced to a mere subject of ridicule. I had always admired the power of words, how they could either build or destroy. My father had wielded his words like weapons, his flattery sharp and calculating. But now, those same words that once elevated him hung heavy in the air, turning on him like a pack of hungry wolves. "You thought you could drown me in your shadow," I whispered to myself, my fingers tracing the cold edge of the windowsill. I felt as if I had spent years standing on the periphery of my father's brightly illuminated world, squinting against the glare of his success, and now, here I was watching it burn to the ground. The sound of the front door creaking open made me look away from the chaos outside. My father stumbled into the room, his eyes scanning for any sign of support, any glimmer of hope that I would somehow come to his aid. But all I felt was a cold, simmering satisfaction, my heart pounding with a sense of vindication. His face was ashen, a stark contrast to his typically robust demeanor. It was as if the vitality had drained from him, replaced by a ghost that haunted his steps. "Amelia," he murmured, his voice trembling as he approached. "I need you. I need your help to fix this mess." For a moment, I almost felt a flicker of sympathy. After all, he was my father, the man who had raised me, who had been my rock, or so I had thought. Memories of my own struggles rushed back to me, wrapped in the fog of resentment. "You thought you could drown me in your shadow, but here I am," I declared, each word slicing the air like glass. His eyes widened as they met mine, a cocktail of disbelief and desperation swirling within them. "Amelia," he repeated, his voice slightly louder, almost pleading. "I know I have made mistakes, serious ones, but we can fix this together. We need to do damage control. You have connections. You have the skills, please." His voice cracked at the end, unraveling even further, laying bare the weight of his anxieties. "Damage control?" I echoed, an incredulous laugh escaping my lips. "You think we can contain this? The newspapers are already having a field day. Do you even realize the extent of it?" I gestured out towards the swarm of reporters, my heart racing with a mixture of triumph and disbelief. "They are mocking you, father. You thought your empire was invincible, but look at it now. You built this house of cards, and I'm just enjoying the show as it tumbles down. But I'm your father?" he shot back, his voice gaining a hint of fervor, his desperation turning to anger. "I'm the one who put food on the table, who sacrificed everything for your future?" "Funny you should mention sacrifices," I replied, leaning against the window frame, my arms crossed defiantly. "You sacrificed me to your ambitions, father, so you could build your empire without a care in the world. You made it clear that my needs didn't matter. My feelings didn't matter. What about the times I sat alone in this house? What about the nights I cried myself to sleep because you were never there?" His eyes softened for the briefest moment as he glanced inward, possibly reflecting on the years of neglect. "I was busy. I was building a better life for you," he murmured, more to himself than to me. "You have to understand that it was for you, for us." "Was it?" I challenged, my voice rising, brimming with indignation. "Was it really for us? Because I always felt like I was the one caught in your shadow, a mere afterthought in your pursuit of wealth and prestige. Do you think I care about saving your reputation now? Would you have even noticed if I had fallen apart?" I stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking into a tight knot of unresolved anger. My father averted his eyes, and for the first time, I saw the flicker of shame flash across his pale features. It was a small victory, but I clung to it as if it were a lifebuoy in the midst of an angry ocean. The years of being drowned out by his grandiosity had built a storm inside me, and now it was breaking free. "You should have thought about this before you placed your ambitions above everything else," I continued, my voice steady but fierce. and I have no intention of helping you brush this under the rug. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. I can fix this. Shouted, his face flushed with frustration. The desperation in his voice rattled me, for beneath it lay a threat I hadn't sensed before. You think this is over? You think they will let our family name die quietly? I will do whatever it takes to restore my reputation and yours. My heart raced at the challenge laced within his words. What exactly do you think you will do, father? Hire a PR firm? Shovel money to the journalists and hope they swallow your lies? Nothing can plug the hole that you created. You're a laughingstock now, and I revel in it. I raised you to be better than this, he said, his voice now a dull echo of its former power. You act like this is your victory, but it's not. You will feel the fallout just as much as I will. No, father, I said, relishing this rare moment of strength. I will not be tarnished by your mistakes. This is your downfall, not mine. You have taken me for granted for far too long. How can I possibly support you now? He looked utterly defeated, but beneath that defeat lay an ember of anger, simmering just beneath the surface. For the first time, I could see a mirror reflecting my own rage in him. You don't know anything about survival, he retorted, his voice low and menacing. You will regret turning your back on me. A shiver ran down my spine at the threat hidden in his words, but rather than fear, empowerment surged through me. This was my moment, my chance to finally break free from the chains of dependency he had forged. Oh, I know well about survival, father. I survived a childhood steeped in your ambition and neglect. I survived the silence that filled this house whenever you were too busy to notice me. I am not afraid of what's to come. In that moment, I realized I was the monster unleashed, reveling in the wreckage of his empire, and I simply did not care. So, stand there and wallow in your misery, I continued, stepping back, reclaiming my space. The great Amelia Bennett will rise from the ashes long after your name is forgotten. You may have built an empire, but in your quest for greatness, you lost the most important thing, your family. He hesitated, no longer able to maintain the facade of authority, the remnants of his bravado crumbling before our eyes. Amelia, I still care about you, he finally whispered, almost as if every word pained him. We just put this behind us and work together? My heart hardened against his plea. You don't get to call for unity now, father. Where were you when I needed you? You forfeited that right when you decided I was insignificant. I turned away, the sheer weight of his disappointment no longer feeling like chains, but rather wings, giving me the freedom to soar beyond his failures. As I walked towards the staircase, I felt the weight of years lift from my shoulders. You can fix this mess yourself. I'll be watching the downfall from a distance, savoring each moment. You made this bed, now lie in it. The moment my feet hit the first step, I turned just slightly enough to catch a glimpse of his shattered expression, and I couldn't help but smile, an act of defiance. I was finally free from his shadow, and this reigniting flame of resolve filled me with a sense of strength I'd never known. Burning fiercer than the legacy he had forced upon me months had dragged on since the last time I felt my father's presence in this house. Months since he had walked through the door wearing that same worn-out jacket that seemed to cling to him like a second skin. Standing there, in what used to be the vibrant living room filled with laughter and echoes of family meals, I now looked to find nothing but cracks in the walls and dust in the corners, a mirror of the family we used to be. The echoes of our former lives seemed to swirl around me, bittersweet and sharply edged like shattered glass, but I felt good. I had reclaimed my power, the same power he had tried to strip from me for years. I stood amidst the ruins of our family's finances, which had crumbled like burnt toast. It was poetic, really. The remnants of what once was, mixed with the unmistakable thrill of vindication that ran through me like a warm current. With each breath I took, I felt strength surge through my body. It was freeing. My lips curled into a soft smile as I recalled the journal tucked away in my bedside drawer. The weight of it filled me with pride. This journal was my sanctuary, a record of every decision I made and every emotion I lived through the storms of my childhood. Each ink-stained page held pieces of my fight, my thoughts, and my resolve to escape his shadow. Weeks filled with anxiety and sleepless nights turned into a river of creativity. It became the foundation upon which I rebuilt my life, brick by brick. This is where I was supposed to be when everything fell apart, I thought, glancing around at the remnants of our family. Our once bright yellow walls had faded to a sad shade of mustard, and the chipped furniture where we had gathered for family dinners seemed like ghosts from a life that had abandoned me. For years I felt tethered to a past that was not my own, a spiral leading into darkness that I refused to follow anymore. Instead, I would take these emotional ruins and transform them, just like I did with my heart and soul. Amelia, are you in here? My friend called out from the kitchen, breaking the trance that held me captive. The sound of her voice was like a chime breaking through a storm, and it brought me back to the present. I'm in the living room, I replied, my voice echoing slightly in the emptiness. I wiped a dust-covered palm against my jeans and took a deep breath, shaking off the memories. I knew that I had to process everything, but I did not have to drown in it anymore. She entered the room, her auburn hair catching the fading light from the window, casting a glow over her features. I brought those files you asked for. She placed a stack of paper down on the table, the contracts and agreements I needed to forge my new future. I could feel excitement bubbling beneath my skin like a gentle current. Thanks, you're a lifesaver, I said, flipping through the files, my mind racing with the possibilities they represented. I felt the rush of purpose inundate my thoughts once again. The world felt heavy on my shoulders at times, but this was my chance. My hand grazed over the curled edges of the papers. You have no idea how much this means to me. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. I think I do, but it's not just about the contracts, Amelia. It's about the freedom you've gained. Look at you. You're not the same person you were 6 months ago. I glanced up at her, hope turning into joy at her recognition. This morning I was looking back at my journal, and I realized how far I've come since all of this. I motioned around the room, gesturing at the remnants of our family's broken dreams. At one point, I thought I wouldn't make it out of the chaos, and yet here I stand ready to create something new. That's right, you went through hell and came out shining. It's remarkable, she replied, her voice filled with warmth. Just hearing her say that made every shred of pain I had endured feel worthwhile. Sometimes I still can't believe it. I mean, I watched him spiral and I thought, how could he lose everything? And then it dawned on me, he never cared about anything that mattered, did he? Not really, I confessed, my thoughts swirling once again around the man who had once held so much power over my life. For the first time in months, I found a calmness inside amidst the chaos of our shared past. You're right, she said softly. It's like he was always blind to what truly mattered: family, honesty, love, and you're learning to see through all that. It's allowing you to build a life grounded in something real. The weight of her words settled in my heart, and I couldn't help but smile wider. Just watching his world unravel has felt like justice. I felt every painful moment slowly transform into a piece of hope. He's become a cautionary tale to everyone who knows him now, a broken man unable to find solace or security. This is your moment, she reminded me with a nod, and I could see the glimmer of enthusiasm in her eyes. It's time to leave that twisted family legacy behind. Yes, and it doesn't stop there. I'm going to take this leap, and I'm going to do it on my own terms. No more chains, no more fear, I declared, feeling the exhilaration wash over me like a wave crashing against the shore. This is my chance to finally break free. The two of us stepped back outside, into the evening light that felt like it was embracing us in a kind of warmth I had never felt before. The trees were starting to shed their leaves, preparing for winter, but their roots remained strong in the ground. I could see the parallels reflecting my journey. I was planting new roots, ready to grow in a place where pain could no longer tether me to past burdens. Over the next few weeks, I dove headfirst into my newfound ambition. With each new opportunity, the shadows of my father's choices faded further into the background, leaving bright canvases for me to color with my experiences. I met clients, secured meetings, and even turned my passion for art into a side business that began to flourish. In coffee shops filled with the scent of roasted beans and the light chatter of hopeful souls, I painted and sketched, capturing emotions I had never thought I could express. One evening, I flipped the pages of my journal, remembering the cold and lonely nights filled with dread and uncertainty, wondering whether I would ever escape the weight of my father's decisions. The words I had poured onto the pages were now my armor, and I could almost fill the ink in those lines with the life I was now crafting for myself. We should celebrate tonight, my friend said one day, bursting into my studio with a bright smile. You're officially opening your first art exhibit, and I think it deserves a toast. Oh my goodness, really? I gasped, overwhelmed by the thought. You mean people are actually coming to see my work? It feels unreal. Of course, you've put so much into this. You deserve every bit of praise, Amelia, she insisted, throwing her arms around me in an enthusiastic hug. I just can't believe how far I've come. Sometimes I look out at the world and all the chains seem to disappear. I'm finally brave enough to take this leap. Brave enough? You've been brave since day one, but trust me, this is just the beginning, she reassured me, her fervor contagious. As the day of the exhibit approached, my mind raced with excitement and nerves. I filled my walls with vibrant strokes of paint, each canvas holding an emotion, a story untold. Memories of dimly lit rooms and muffled voices surrounded me, yet now they felt like fleeting shadows, easily dismissed as I crafted something full of light. When the night finally arrived and the gallery opened its doors, I stood on the precipice of a new life. Guests wandered from piece to piece, marveling at the transformation evident in each brushstroke. Conversations sparked, laughter echoed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. As I greeted guests, I noticed a familiar face across the room, the one I had once dreaded seeing. My father stood at the entrance, his eyes wide and searching. A mix of surprise and disbelief passed over his features when they landed on me, as if unable to comprehend how I had turned this corner without him. His presence may have once stirred an avalanche of anxiety within me, but now it felt like a mere whisper of a distant storm. I approached him with a calm demeanor, exuding an air of confidence that had blossomed through my journey. "Long time no see," I said lightly, tilting my head as he stepped forward. "Amelia," he started, hesitating as if unsure how to proceed. "I'm surprised to see you here, I mean, with everything that's happened." The words trailed off into an awkward silence, a struggle for him to find balance while I flourished beside him like a wildflower stealing the scene. "Isn't it fitting?" I decided to press on, not allowing his discomfort to dampen my spirit. "You always taught me how to fight for what I love, right? You might want to take notes." He looked momentarily trapped, his face transforming into a mask of confusion, and I saw the desperation leaking through the cracks in his facade. Save it," I interjected, holding up my hand to stop him. "I don't need your apologies anymore. It's amusing, really, to see how quickly the tables have turned. You thought you had all the power. Remember when you stood there, yelling at me, telling me I would never succeed? Guess you underestimated me." A bitter smile crept across my lips as I turned away from the man who had worked so hard to erase my spirit. I had spent too much time battling his influence, and now I was ready to soar without those chains weighing me down. As I walked back towards my guests, I could hear the whispered murmurs of admiration surrounding my pieces. I had taken all the pain and turned it into something fierce and beautiful, a creation that only I could yield. "I know you think you can dismiss me." His voice cut through the laughter and the conversations, "but I am still your father." I spun around slowly. The room blurred momentarily around me, but I kept my focus locked on his. "You used to be, but with every decision I made to reclaim my power, you faded into nothing but a cautionary tale, my cautionary tale, or maybe the world's." I did not feel anger. Instead, I felt a liberation that came from knowing I held my destiny firmly in my grasp. Smiling brightly, I turned back to my guests, immersed in conversations and admiration. A warmth filled my chest, for I had taken back my narrative and woven it into something extraordinary. I did not just survive his reign of chaos, I flourished in the aftermath of it. With every laugh shared, every compliment exchanged, I felt the invisible chains collapse under the weight of my triumph. In those moments surrounded by trust and support, I realized the most satisfying revenge was not merely about punishment or retreat. It was about rising above the rubble he had left behind. The satisfaction of witnessing his downfall had far outweighed any pain he inflicted upon me. As I immersed myself in the vibrant energy of my opening night, I left behind the twisted legacy of my past. I embraced my newfound freedom with open arms, laying the foundation for a future where my own light would always shine bright. Forever liberated from his chains, I was ready to create a new legacy, one filled with life rather than ruins. And that, dear universe, was the sweetest taste of revenge.